Hello children. If you've been following the news surrounding DQ3, my condolences. Video game journalism is usually done sloppy and with an incredibly high output volume. So the articles end up being some unpaid interns' attempts at stretching quote-unquote news out to the minimum required amount of symbols to not get their boss upset. And DQ is already a franchise that a low percentage of Western unpaid interns give a fuck about. And the name is kind of recognizable. So what do we end up with? We end up caught in a net of misinformed articles repeatedly citing each other. For example, there's this shitpost Twitter account, Awesome DQ Facts, and if you take 1 second to look at it, it's clearly nothing to be taken seriously. So what does a respectable news site do when you see one of their posts? They write an article using only a single joke the Twitter account made as their basis. They don't fact check for even a second, they don't look any farther at the account, they smell the sensationalism, they decide to go all in. That being said, thankfully that article was deleted. But how could it ever get so far? How could people then look at these articles, take them for granted and have to apologize for it later? Look at any comment sections about this game and you'll find out. There is a large group of people that care more about being angry than about being informed. And given the relatively small size of the Western DQ community, they make up a noticeable and loud minority that is occupying most of the discussion surrounding the game. And the DQ3 Remake is an easy target for people who aren't particularly invested in the series or anything surrounding it. Specifically people who are already upset at Square and Sweet Baby Inc. because of things with Final Fantasy. And even more specifically, there are a few articles and a YouTube video that inspired a lot of parrots to go around and yell in comment sections. A lot of articles follow the same scheme. They start talking about, oh no, DQ3 HD removed gender, we're all going to die. And then they zoom out to complain about Square as a company without even covering the implications for DQ. That is, because they don't care. The biggest YouTube video on the subject is clearly stretched out to 8 minutes. It's from a guy with an ungodly output volume that admits,
I thought that was really cool. Like, wow, we're going to get these games remade. I never played them. I would love to go back and play the originals that started this long-running game series.
And he says,
apparently this had something like it. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, I never played the old Dragon Quest, but apparently there were subclasses based on gender. They were distinguished by gender.
And yes, I will correct you. You made that up. The original never worked like that. There are no subclasses. There's nothing gender specific to any of the classes.
Now, these jobs had a male and female variant as well. They're taking that out. I guess anybody can do anything. It's not really true to the original then, is it?
And guess what? That was the whole point. This is such a big part of a playthrough as a female protagonist in the non-NES versions. But I'm getting ahead of myself. He didn't actually make that stuff about subclasses and gender differences up. Somebody else did. He's quoting an article, and that article yet again is quoting a quote-unquote article, which is just some Japanese transphobe's opinion on this thing, not an actual article. And if we look at different articles, other quote-unquote news sites are also just quoting this one transphobe's opinion as an article. And yet again, it's a site with an insane output. If you weren't born yesterday, you know that this is just how this works. The blogs that get the most attention are the ones with a high output, and to keep up a high output you can't possibly pay close attention to every source or every topic. But why do people then get so convinced by this if these articles are bad? The easy answer is that they don't get convinced, but they already have their hatred for Square and Sweet Baby Inc. and they just project that onto DQ3. They follow these news sites already and just buy whatever they put out. They didn't have a strong opinion on DQ before. And you can find this crowd infiltrating every comment section. The harsh reality, however, is that there are in fact people who cared for DQ to some extent, but they eventually got convinced that this game is going to end society because they didn't look too deeply into it, and maybe they have some innate trust in articles or the loudest voices. The games aren't about a single thing. It's impossible to distill the series down to 1 or 2 points. Hence people are going to care about these games for different reasons and put a different amount of emphasis on them. Maybe you've never actually played one of these games, but you really like the monster designs. So I want to make it clear that I think it's wrong to simply brand everyone who buys into the narrative that Dragon Quest 3 is going to be woke garbage and bad as quote unquote not a real Dragon Quest fan or a tourist. It makes no sense to gatekeep a franchise that's meant for everyone. I've said it before, these games are for longtime fans as well as newcomers, even for people on different sides of the political spectrum. In other words, these games are inclusive and I think we should be as well. And that's what I'm trying with this video. This is for the people who are on the fence about the remake, the people who are curious and then read some article or saw some comment and are now unsure of whether this game is going to be worth their time and money. And I, of course, haven't played it. I can't say whether the game is actually going to be any good. It might be complete garbage for all I know. But the reason is not simply going to be that some ethics department made it woke or one of the many reasons that are simply made up. So first of all, I want everyone to be on the same page here. What is and what isn't confirmed yet. I already covered that puffs are not in fact going to be removed. That's something our shitpost account made up. Then there's talk about further censorship. And that is all based on one article where some Japanese person is talking out of their ass. And the reasoning for the boss troll design change is unclear. Does that have to do with censorship? I don't know. Everything I could say about it would be speculation, and while I have my thoughts, this isn't what the section is for. What about involvement of Sweet Baby Inc? That is also just speculation at this point, and everyone saying that Sweet Baby Inc is currently ruining this game is talking out of their ass. The common claim is that they have to be involved with someone externally who is forcing this transgender ideology down everyone's throats, because else the game wouldn't remove gender. People of course get riled up over this topic, that's just the current trend, now that those same people can't openly be mad at the gays anymore without being called out. At least more circles are going to be accepting of transphobia based on misinformed fearmongering, like the narrative J.K. Rowling popularized, the trans people are erasing women and are killing feminism. Or the transferred over narrative that trans people are making our kids trans instead of the old one that the gays are making our kids gay. But I'm not making a video about transphobia. I'm making a video about the Dragon Quest 3 discourse. So to go back to the change, that you now select a type A or type B character instead of a male or female one. This isn't new. Dragon Quest X Offline was already doing this in a Japan only game. So any transphobe or racist Japanese people that bitch about foreign influences making Dragon Quest 3 gay or something you see quoted are also talking out of their ass, and they don't need any more fluffers. And even then, Dragon Quest has always been accepting of trans people. Dragon Quest 7 back in 2000 had this guy turn to a woman, and you know what the game says about him? It may seem strange to us, but one must regard him with an open mind and an open heart. It uses male pronouns, but not in a spiteful way. This isn't like how some transphobes misgender people on purpose. Again, these games are inherently inclusive to everyone. So no, this isn't a foreign influence. This isn't about appeasing an ethics department, and it's inherent to Dragon Quest to be inclusive. But that isn't even the reason they would make this change. Dragon Quest 3 at the start does separate you from the hero, but then asks you to roleplay as them instead. Thus, selecting type A or type B is more accurate than male or female. If you are, for example, male and you play the old game, you'd have to tell the voice in the sky that you are a girl, but that's not truthful. If you instead select a type B or female body, that checks out. That doesn't make you female, you would still be male, but a male that's taking control of a female body to use in your game. So selecting female in a game that's asking you to insert yourself into a character would be outright wrong for you. This gives you more options. Nobody's taking identifying as male away from you. Same with the party members. You're going to roleplay anyways and create some headcanon about them. Is your headcanon for your warrior that she's a cis woman? All power to you. Is your headcanon that she's a trans woman? Is your headcanon that she's a pretty trans man? Is your headcanon that she was born intersex? It doesn't fucking matter. You have options. And yes, there are ways to transition into Dragon Quest worlds, as I just covered, and no, cis isn't an insult. This isn't just some necessary evil for the ethics department, and it's not even some necessary evil to allow for some gameplay changes, like making formerly male and female characters equally strong. This change is entirely in the spirit of Dragon Quest. And as much as I like shitting on the localizations for these games, this isn't something that was caused by an outside force. This is Dragon Quest. And on that note, what does the change from genders to types imply? Classes will work exactly as they worked before. Gadabouts were never split into subclasses, like you never had Jesters and Goof-Offs or something. Jesters are just from Dragon Quest 7, a game which doesn't even feature playable bunny girls, by the way. And the version-dependent Goof-Off or Gadabout has the same name and stats on a male and female character. There was never any gender-specific class or even class name. A warrior was a warrior, regardless of gender. The people complaining just made shit up, or they are regurgitating shit that someone else made up. There was gender-specific gear, however, and we don't have confirmation on how that will work. I don't think it needs to be changed, to be honest, but more options would be nice. And then, lastly, there's gender-specific personalities, and we don't have confirmations on how personalities will work at all. It's a flawed system that needs reworking either way. And lastly, the game still uses male or female pronouns. So what does type A and type B mean in practice? From what we know, it's literally just two words being swapped out. Everyone claiming otherwise is just making shit up. Something else you will have no doubt seen spammed all over social media is, boo-hoo, they changed the hero into just the protagonist, and he's not you, he's Erdrick. The hero is the protagonist of the story, and while he later becomes Erdrick, you're still asked by the game to insert yourself into that character. It's not something that has been changed, this is faithful to the original. So wait, am I saying there's no confirmed censorships of any female characters, no confirmed major implications of the gender versus type A type B thing? No confirmed affiliation with Sweet Baby Inc. and everything that people are getting so riled up over is stuff that people made up to get mad about? Well, yes I am, and that's a sad state we're living in. And while plenty of people do know, this isn't something that anyone with a platform really brings to the discussion, which is why someone with barely a platform like me is doing it now. And to clarify, I don't think that people exclaiming their boycott are going to harm the game in any meaningful way. I mean, if they did succeed, they would simply pull the plug on the last member of the localization team that's barely hanging on. Dragon Quest X offline did decently well, and that didn't have an option to select a male or female player character either. So I'm not trying to get people to buy this game because I want the series to succeed. I want people to play this game to see and judge it for themselves. I want to enrich your lives. I want people to not just listen to whatever voice is loudest, because it just so happens that right now the voice of reason is whimpering while being taken out back like a dog. Don't let somebody who doesn't understand the first thing about these games rob you of this experience if you're interested. Go and borrow the game for all I care. Just don't watch one of those videos where someone is talking about Final Fantasy to reach 8 minutes.
They got rid of that. Can't think of the last time a Final Fantasy had that. I have played most of those.
Trying to grab a couple of views while not knowing what Dragon Quest even is, and then tells you that you can buy the game if you want, while also making it clear that you'd be supporting Satan himself if you actually did buy the game, and actually take their word for gospel. Do a little critical thinking and look at sources. Honestly, do you know how many times I've had to read some whining about Puff Puffs being removed as if it wasn't just a third-rate article that didn't even look at their own sources and didn't realize that it was a shitpost Twitter account, and then these people just saw the headline of this article and thought that an article would never lie, especially not in a headline, and didn't even read the article, which just openly calls homosexuality immoral and wrong, and then someone else made a fucking video on this article and still didn't check to see that it was all nonsense, that it was all just sensationalism, some intern being too stoked at the idea of getting a nice headline to even check what they were sourcing, which was a shitpost Twitter account. Dragon Quest is for everyone, not just the longtime fans. Also the people who have never played a video game before, the people who plan out their playthroughs in advance, as well as people who just go in blind and wing it, children as well as their grandparents. It's even for the angry boys that probably used to watch Tate that are now going around spreading negativity. I've cleared up a lot, but of course people can make up new lies faster than I can debunk them. There are a lot of wild speculations that only a few people throw around that I didn't cover, like specific censorship myths. But to summarize, there's barely anything we know for certain, and none of it is actually negative. Something I can tell you for sure is that Dragon Quest is for everyone, and that includes you. Yes, even if you're scared out of your mind that this game is going to corrupt society, turn everyone trans and end all women's rights, and even if you yourself have been commenting about this online, go play this game when it releases and find out for yourself whether it has really been ruined or not.